The most unlikely name of this week on the Philadelphia Eagles' radar comes from a place that no NFL fan was expecting to see in 2026, my friend. A player who was selected with the 4th overall pick in a draft, who arrived in the league carrying the highest expectations any defender can carry, who was categorically dismissed as one of the biggest busts in recent draft history, and who spent the last 3 years rebuilding a career that everyone had already declared finished. Bleacher Report published an analysis on Tuesday connecting Philadelphia to this veteran edge rusher, calling the Eagles a logical landing spot for a player who could be exactly the kind of rotational piece and leadership asset the franchise needs to add before training camp. What Bleacher Report's Kristopher Knox wrote about this edge rusher, how his career trajectory answers directly the question of whether a player can recover from a catastrophic NFL beginning, and what the current state of the Eagles' pass rush reveals about why this specific addition makes more sense than it appears at first glance. You are going to understand all of it right here. If you are a true Eagles fan, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because this story is about far more than a rotational signing. There are 2 names that any football fan who followed the 2019 draft will automatically pair together. One was selected with the 4th overall pick, carrying every expectation that slot demands. The other was selected with the 106th overall pick on an unremarkable late afternoon in the 4th round by a team that expected little and received far more than it imagined possible. The first was labeled a bust in fewer than 3 seasons. The second became one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Both were selected by the same team in the same draft. And now the first, who spent years trying to escape the shadow the second, created simply by existing on the same roster, is being connected to the Eagles as a possible addition before training camp. That player is Clelin Ferrell. Kristopher Knox was direct in the Bleacher Report analysis. He acknowledged that Ferrell never played up to his draft status. He acknowledged the bust label that followed him through his years with the Las Vegas Raiders. And then he made the argument that any honest observer of the last 3 years of the edge rusher's career needs to recognize as legitimate. Ferrell has become a very capable rotational player when healthy, and for a franchise that needs genuine pass rush depth after losing Jalen Phillips to the Carolina Panthers on a 4-year, $120 million contract. That capability carries real value. Ferrell's story from the 2019 draft is one of the most ironic in recent NFL history. Selected 4th overall by the Raiders, he arrived carrying every expectation of being the elite edge rusher who would transform Las Vegas's defense. In the same draft, with the 106th pick in the 4th round, the Raiders selected a defensive end out of Eastern Michigan that almost nobody had placed in their top 50, Maxx Crosby. The 4 seasons that followed were one of the league's most ironic parallel trajectories. Crosby grew to become one of the best pass rushers in the world, while Ferrell accumulated just 10 sacks between 2019 and 2022. In 2023, the Raiders allowed Ferrell to leave as a free agent. But what happened next is what transforms this analysis from speculation into a real argument for the Eagles' interest. Ferrell signed a 1-year, $2.5 million contract with the San Francisco 49ers for the 2023 season. And in that year, what appeared to be the final chapter of a career that had disappointed from the beginning transformed into something completely different. Ferrell started all 17 games for the 49ers. He recorded 3.5 sacks, and he was part of a defense that carried San Francisco to a Super Bowl appearance. A former 4th overall bust was starting 17 games on one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL during a Super Bowl run. That is not an accident. When Adam Peters, former assistant general manager of the 49ers, was hired as the Washington Commanders' general manager after the 2023 season, one of the first things he did was bring Ferrell with him. A 1-year, $3.75 million contract. The USA Today comment about that signing was revealing. Peters brought Ferrell because he knows he is a good leader, works hard, and has no problem mentoring younger players. Ferrell is a good run stopper. That is exactly the language that describes a veteran player whom an intelligent front office uses as leadership capital and depth. Not as the star who generates headlines, but as the quiet foundation that makes everyone around him more effective. In the 2025 season, Ferrell returned to the San Francisco 49ers in October after a period away from the starting roster. In 8 games, he recorded 24 tackles, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 4 quarterback pressures. 4 sacks in 8 games as a rotational player in a partial season is a production rate per snap that any defensive coordinator would be smart to want in the rotation. And he is now 29 years old, having just turned that age in May of 2026. Knox is specific about that detail because it is what separates Ferrell from other veteran edge rushers on the free agent market right now. 29 years old is not old age for a pass rusher in the NFL. It is the kind of age profile that allows a team to offer a multi-year contract without feeling like they are betting on someone past their peak. For Philadelphia, which is trying to build pass rush depth sustainably, while simultaneously managing the extensions of Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean, a 2-year low-cost deal for a 29-year-old rotational player with a track record of production in elite systems is exactly the kind of cap efficiency that Howie Roseman loves to exploit. The Eagles' pass rush context adds the final element that transforms this analysis from speculation into a real argument. Jalen Phillips was the edge rusher the Eagles had planned to build around for the future. He signed with the Carolina Panthers for 4 years and $120 million this offseason. To compensate for his departure, Philadelphia executed a trade with the Minnesota Vikings to bring in Jonathan Greenard, immediately extending the defender on a 4-year, $98 million contract. Greenard is the high-level starting edge rusher who will be the complement to Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt in the rotation. Jalix Hunt, for his part, had the most historically notable season of any Eagles linebacker in 2025. He became the first player in franchise history to lead the team in both sacks and interceptions in the same season. That kind of multidimensional production is what defines a special defender, and Hunt enters 2026 as one of the most exciting players on the roster. Nolan Smith, the 2023 first-round pick, showed genuine promise when healthy with 7 sacks in 2024 and 4 additional sacks in the Super Bowl 59 playoffs. But an arm injury in 2025 and a legal process this offseason created uncertainty around his immediate future. It is within that roster context that Ferrell fits most naturally, not as the starter who replaces someone, but as the experienced rotational player who comes on the field at the right moments, who relieves the workload of Greenard and Smith in high-risk situations, who gives Vic Fangio's coaching staff a versatile option to deploy in 4 and 5 rusher packages, and who brings with him the locker room leadership credibility that Peters described precisely when he signed him in Washington. A player who went from 4th overall bust to capable rotational player across multiple elite NFL defensive systems did not arrive at that point by accident. He arrived there by working, learning, and adapting in ways that every professional coach recognizes and values. The question Roseman needs to answer before any decision is whether Ferrell's cost on a multi-year deal, which Knox suggests as the appropriate format for a signing at this stage of the career, fits within the available space after the priority extensions and the A.J. Brown trade. If the number is reasonable and the physical examination confirms Ferrell is healthy, the Eagles would have a low-risk, high-specific contribution addition that any Super Bowl aspirant roster should at least seriously consider. With Bleacher Report calling the Eagles a logical landing spot for Clelin Ferrell, the former 4th overall bust who rebuilt his career in San Francisco and Washington before turning 29, do you think Howie Roseman is going to explore this possibility before training camp? Does a veteran rotational player with proven leadership and real rotational production fit what the Eagles need to complete the pass rush? Or is the current roster sufficient without additional edge? Additions? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later with the latest Eagles news.